Hello and welcome to an episode of Casual Friday. I'm here with Duck. As always, the show is brought to you by Woo. Links available in the description below. Don, ETHBTC monthly is shaping up to be green. Now, there are only 3 weeks left, and this will be the first green monthly if it gets salvaged over the last 6 months or something. Is it finally time, or is there some sort of remnant of PTSD when it comes to ETH strength? Because this thing
I'm
just lifted the roof, right? On the entire market. This is a mental weekly on ETH USD. The daily is just melting up.
absolutely insane. Yeah.
And in the past, ETH would go up 2% on a Sunday and everyone would say, oh, it's over. And they were right for 6 months straight. But this looks and feels a bit different. So how do you measure the inherent sort of bearish bias that's been formed in the last few months derived from ETH strength with the sort of real ETH strength we're seeing now? Do you think the argument still applies? Is it different this time? Give us some hope, because you're an ETH bag holder.
I am a ETH back holder, actually. Yeah. I mean, I've been saying above 2K, ETH starts looking really good. We got 2K and then immediately teleported to 2.4. So that's quite nice. Just generally, it's a nice move. When you look at ETHBTC, it's kind of laughable still. It's barely moved at all, actually. It's just on the ETHUSD pair. It's quite a nice move. But generally, I cannot believe you skipped over the fact that you start the show with welcome to another show. And it's been 20 years since we've done this thing. Cannot believe.
Listen, if I walk in and there's an elephant in the room, I'm ignoring it. I don't know why you would go and confront it. It just seems like a really bad idea. So for the interest of self-preservation, I thought, why not return to baseline?
Oh, the man just comes in and everyone's been begging for the Fridays back. And it gives no explanation whatsoever. I love it.
Dad left to go milk, except he actually came back this time.
Yeah. You're like, I cannot quite leave.
I was waiting for you to run a solo Friday show, but didn't quite materialize.
No, I mean, that's a little bit too much work.
It's hey guys, it's been 2 days. Let's look at the monthly chart again.
Exactly. That's a little bit boring, yeah?
Yeah.
No, I'm happy to have you back.
Oh, well, it's good to be back, at least for this episode. God knows what the future holds.
the next one is in another quarter or two.
I know. But yeah, I mean, ETH is was there any specific ETH catalyst that you think prompted this, apart from the Gainsey crash out and some sort of
I was about to say the Gainsey crash out.
Okay, sweet.
No, I mean, it was just it was getting really oversold, and something that we talked about, right? Where we both kind of said hey, this is clearly capitulating. We also always said that it can capitulate much longer than you would think. And whenever stuff capitulates, it kind of overcorrects to the downsides, and then it corrects to the upside. And those corrections are usually quite severe. And that's kind of what we're going through right now. I think there's not really a lot of people are trying to pin it on the protocol change or whatever happened a couple of days ago. I forgot the name of it. I don't know if you kept up to date.
I saw it go. All these Ethereum acronyms and
I
titles
forget the names
beyond me, but yes. But I mean, this ETH culture war has been going on for a while, right? This wasn't new. We had the whole war mode Vitalik meme months ago, and ETHBTC was still very red.
I just think it wasn't time. People don't really understand how crypto works, in my opinion. People oh, Vitalik is not chat enough, and that's why ETH is going down. He's not doing this. It's just cycle things, man.
Yeah.
You need to shake out weak hands. You need to accumulate the strong hands, and then you do the opposite on the upside. This is just how this shit works, right? When you have something that is underlyingly very hard, if not impossible, to kind of judge how much it should be worth. That's just kind of how it goes. And then you get moves that are too far to the downside, and then you get moves that are too far to the upside. And people are always just coping about their founder doing not the right things or whatever. And I don't think that's a little bit of it, obviously, but it's not as much as people give it credit for. I just generally think it wasn't really time I mean, altcoins generally was just doing really poorly, right? People were pretending that it was just ETH, but most altcoins were down 90% against Bitcoin.
Yeah. Oh,
And
against
then
BTC, it's awful. And I mean, also,
yeah,
people love to focus on outliers, but there are like 700 perps or something listed on Binance. I don't know what the exact number is, but it's something absurd. And if you look at most of them, even today, after the last couple of days, versus BTC versus USD, it's still very rough, you know?
yeah,
Like, people are discussing the BTC all-time high waiting room because it's so fucking close, and a lot of these alts are, you know, still down like 70, 80% from their highs, 60 if it's strong. I mean, there are some outliers, obviously, but it just because the outliers become even more outlier because we have like 700 coins listed on centralized exchanges nowadays, and that's
yeah.
not even counting all the trench money that's been burned away as well. So it's the dispersion is just keeps slapping you in the face. You know, it slaps you on the face on the way up because you're like, oh, I should have just like held BTC or like the few alts that are outperforming, and then it slaps you on the way down for obvious reasons, and then even on the bounce, you're always just getting slapped by dispersion. This market cycle, it feels like.
Yeah.
And I've yet to see like a very clearly articulated thesis for alt season, or at least a redefinition of alt season, considering like just how many coins there are. You know, like I know it's such a trite and repetitive point, but I think at least the industry could benefit from redefining those terms. Like, what does it mean to have an alt season? And how many alts have to participate, and like what does the market have to look like in general? Because it used to mean, as extreme as this definition sounds, basically every single listed altcoin is making all-time highs, you know?
Yeah.
And like that definition is extreme, but it was also the reality at the time for many reasons that we've discussed previously
Good
on this
times.
show. Many months ago. But like now, it's the definition's kind of lost its meaning because I don't think you can realistically have 700 listed perps or whatever, not to mention trenches making new all-time highs. So it depends entirely on what you're looking at. Like some people are still going through like a proper bear market in their portfolio, you know, whereas for others, if, let's say they're mostly sort of BTC heavy, they haven't really flinched this entire time. But I mean, if a 30% pullback on BTC makes you flinch, then God rest your soul and good luck. This is the only thing I've got to say there. Did you see that meme, by the way?
Long.
Well, dude, yeah, I mean, that's like as a tale as old as time itself. Did you see that thing? Probably the most explicit sort of articulation of this dispersion is the first time BTC tested 100k, ETH was this price.
Oh yeah, I saw it.
I mean that, and this is ETH we're talking about, right? Not some daily LA vape cabal runner that disappears just like their Twitter activity type of thing. So like it's very much still there. Like where people are having completely wildly different experiences of crypto, but still, I guess the closest we can come to alt season is just when I guess the average return of all the altcoins is green, quite a lot, you know, pretty green for like a period of, I mean, what, 2 days? I guess that qualifies now. In the past, it was like literally weeks and months, whereas now it's like if alts get a bit of a breather, it's alt season or whatever. It's obviously a trite point, but I guess the one sort of useful thing out of that is I still think that the whole dispersion argument and too many coins argument and having to be picky argument, all of those are still valid in my mind, you know?
Oh, 100%.
And I don't think that's changing anytime soon. If anything, the frameworks have to change to accommodate for that. You can't just pick anything and expect to make a all-time high in USD terms. You can't just expect it to keep up with or outperform BTC. You need to pick really fucking carefully. And I think no matter which direction the market has gone over the last few months, like we had a lot of down, we had a strong bounce very recently. BTC is near its all-time high. That point just seems to be kind of cyclically true.
100% agree. I mean, it doesn't cost anything to make a coin, right? Like when the upfront cost to make something is zero, and then you have infinite of those, and you're trying to pump all of it. Like, how is that going to work, right? You cannot find enough people that are willing to buy something that's just inherently worth zero for a long period of time. Like during mania, whatever, maybe for like a couple of days. It's what we've had with the meme coins, where like they started off when there was less of just a less amount of meme coins. You had like everything going up, and then it got more and more and more, and at some point it's just impossible to sustain. And I think that's just kind of inherently a crypto problem. The fact that this is all kind of like this is all software, you can just make infinite of it.
Yes.
No problem. It's all open source too, so you can even fork it for free.
Yes. And the platforms have made it completely frictionless now to launch tokens.
On top of that, yeah.
And exchanges have also become very, very loose with listings. I think that's another part that periodically gets spoken about.
Really sad, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Like,
just fucking
it's
list
fucked up.
anything, you know?
Yeah.
Like, complete garbage scam, essentially. Well, everything is a garbage scam. Yeah, yes, but I think
But
some
some
things
is more.
some things are, you know, scamminess is a continuum or a spectrum. And you know, even like super reputable centralized exchanges were just listing things that would go down only and then disappear completely.
Yeah. I mean, there's a big difference between like when you park and you just don't buy like a parking ticket, you know, and murdering someone. And I think that's the same thing in crypto, you know, like there's some things that are just like they're not paying their parking ticket, and there's some things that are straight up murdering people. And I hate that argument, you know, like people are always like, oh yeah, everything is trash. And I'm like, yeah, not like, but there's different levels of trash. And
Yes.
you really, this is not an, okay, just because this is a little bit of trash, this, or like something's not going.
It has trash-like properties.
Yeah,
You know?
it doesn't mean like it's the exact same amount of shit as other things are. It's what people said about like ETH and Solana, where they compare it to like other shit coins. And I'm like, yeah, I think that argument is just shit. You're just trying to kind of nihilistically justify,
Of course,
shitty behavior, basically. And that's just not the way.
yeah. I mean, whenever you see like hyper reductionism of that nature, you know, like you're not dealing with someone good, faithful, thoughtful most of the time. Speaking of not being thoughtful, let's do some technical analysis.
Yep.
22 days left on the monthly. Did you think the monthly cluster would/could still scam us? The 93.96 one on BTC?
I mean, it still can, yeah, it's still possible, but I have hopes that it doesn't. That would be fucking disgusting. If this monthly closes red, we're fucked.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Like, that's a nice invalidation. I think at that point I'd assume that the cycle's over and we
Jesus,
just
okay.
go into the next one.
I love
don't think it's
conservative
gonna
conclusions.
I don't think it's gonna happen. But that would just be like you have like this whole like closeout resistance, fake breakout. Like everyone is happy because you can see that the sentiment's massively shifted in the last 2-3 days.
I wonder why.
Yeah, it's the moment ETH goes green, people are happy again.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be really bad news. I don't think it's gonna happen. I'm optimistic, but that's something that I would watch. I think I mean I've been holding generally. A lot of people have been criticizing me for like they were like old Don would have sold. Now we're back to where we were, right? Just like whatever. The cool thing is if I hold a little bit longer, then I have my stuff for a year and I don't have to pay taxes on the winnings. So
nice.
Like it's quite nice for me generally. But if that closed below, I would reconsider my positions. Like that'd be actually one where I'd be like, okay, this is just too strong a bearish signal. I just don't think it's necessarily going to happen. I'm optimistic.
So you've at least found the Armageddon monthly level or cluster
that'd be
anyway.
awesome. I mean, imagine how that would look like.
But I mean, that's just this weekly rally, right? It's basically the low of this week. So if this week of pumpage gets erased,
full retrace. Yeah. I mean, full retrace would be just bad, obviously.
Of course, yeah. But I think that argument kind of makes sense on multiple timeframes. Like just looking at that same cluster on the weekly without even shifting around or changing it. It was that whole reclaim thing that you talked about, right? Like the most crypto pattern ever, where it breaks down from support, pushes back into it, and then, you know, the baby pips, broken support turn to resistance, get wheeled out and need extensive facial reconstruction and other plastic surgery because this type of setup just does not work on BTC. I was actually, you were top of mind, Don. That'll make you feel good. When I saw it creeping back up towards 93, whatever, like the previous retest level, all I could think of was, Don's probably talking on a Wednesday stream saying that this kind of resistance level doesn't work. And, you know, this is
actually what I did.
It's crazy how long this has kind of worked for, like how long this pattern has been viable in BTC, right?
Yeah,
the whole
one of the rare ones that you could have just used in the last 8 years.
8 years, it just does not erode. It's absolutely crazy, and it gives you some really powerful signals as well.
Yeah.
I mean, even the FTX implosion in 22, that breakdown from that range low was super similar. The one we talked about, the daily equivalent at like 17K, you know, the double fake out type of thing. that's another example of just, I mean, BTC tends to be really sticky with its patterns, which is really nice. That generally doesn't stick around for as long as it has. But that's kind of why I like high time frames. Like if you find a niche edge on the low time frame, your job is to milk the shit out of it because you expect it to disappear like tomorrow, if you're lucky. But with high time frame stuff, it tends to have a bit more staying power because it's not as niche and fewer people act on it, generally speaking. But yeah, I think to go back to the central point, that same 93k level, I think you can even get rid of 96 if you wanted to. Anything below that, at that point, the monthly looks shit. You've erased all the sort of weekly reclaim breakout upside type of thing. And I think the weekly would start to look shit as well, below 93k, So like realistically, I think that's a pretty decent high time frame invalidation. What do you think? The only other level I have on the weekly is just for short-term trading purposes. I was eyeballing this yesterday and the day before, and naturally did fuck all about it. I just took the highest close of December 24 and the lowest close that followed a couple of weeks after in the same month, and I got a mid-range at like 99k, and that looks like it didn't do shit on the weekly because it didn't, but then intraday, that ended up being a super useful level before this push up to the range highs. That's kind of how I've got it chopped up, at least on the weekly. It's like 93.7 lowest close, 99 mid, and then 104-ish highest close. And that's been a decent sort of blueprint in the interim. Do you have anything else on the weekly that you think warrants attention, or is it really hold the reclaim or fuck off type of territory?
Yeah, hold the reclaim. That's the main thing. Cannot close. To me, 90k is like the line in the sand on the weekly time frame. Just like, but it depends on, like, you can also say 93, like both of those are fine levels in my opinion. Just 90.7 I have, or 94, 93, that cluster. And then the range high that we just hit, I actually tweeted about it just like half an hour ago or something, at 104k. That's obviously like the highest close, obviously resistance. I do expect that to give it a little bit of pause. Like, we've rallied a lot. It's not like the whole like macro situation has changed substantially. So I could see us pausing here a little bit, but the TA is quite bullish still. Like just ignoring all the macro stuff, and we're all not experts in that anyway. Just looking at the TA, like we have a range reclaim. All the time frames, like the monthly looks good. The weekly looks excellent. The daily looks good. Like the daily looks actually completely insane to me. So I'm like, I generally think the TA is quite good, and that's why I'm just expecting a pause. But we did hit resistance on the weekly. Could retrace towards like 100k maybe. Maybe not. I prefer not to. I like the just straight up movements, especially when I have a position.
Yeah, I bet.
But yeah, we'll see how that goes. I could see the weekly resistance working a little bit at least.
Okay, yeah. I think that's pretty sensible, and I think the roadmap is sensible as well. Like, these reclaim setups work best if they basically don't let you in, and if they do let you in, it should be on a shallow-ish higher low rather than retracing the entire move. This is something we've spoken about extensively, but it's always funny. I didn't want to say funny. I feel bad because I've done the same thing, where you see like a big break of a level and you're like, oh, if I'm ready to buy the retest. It's like, mate, it just ran away from the level and broke resistance. What does it say about the market if it just retraces that entire move straight away? The answer is nothing good. So most of the time, it's really the post-breakout price action or the shallow low time frame pullbacks that are best for doing business if there's a real kind of reclaim going on. And I think that's especially true for BTC. All of its real high time frame breakouts and reclaims generally don't afford you the luxury of coming back. And if they do, it's generally speaking not the best sign in the world. But like, I'm personally comfortable with just having that carved out, what we've discussed. The weekly range of 104, 90-ish, and then 100 round number, and they'll probably have you sorted for the next week or so, at least in terms of where to look.
Yeah.
You mentioned that we hit like the weekly range higher resistance thing or whatever else. We had like pretty much a record day of short liquidations on in the last couple of days.
Yeah,
I mean,
was that
it was
actually?
absolutely mental. Yeah, it was some of the highest since 2021, I think.
Oh, that's so embarrassing for the people that got blown out.
I know, mate. It was. I mean,
I'm
this move was mental.
Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest, right? Like we had a clean range reclaim. I don't know why you would want, like, you would ever get blown out by like in a short. Like I don't like just from if you trade anything other than TA, maybe, right?
Yeah,
But
for sure.
this is so clear to me. Like the 90K reclaim on the weekly, like being short anything above there, just did not make any sense to me. I was pretty vocal about this on all the shows that I did since then, because I just like there's so like this kind of setup happens so rarely.
Yeah.
When it does, it like I cannot remember when it hasn't worked out. So it's kind of like
it's Lindy. It's a Lindy pattern
yeah,
for BTC.
like straight up.
Sure.
Like why put yourself in that position when you can just like clearly see what's going on?
Well, when you can not do that.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe I'm just like obviously like if you get it right, and then it's gonna be like, oh, why the fuck did other people fall for it?
Yes.
But if you get it wrong, you're like, ah, shit. I mean, just unlucky, I guess.
History is written by the victors, is it not? Not something you would know much about, hailing from Germany. Nonetheless, like, thing is, even if you're like, let's say your thesis is that the effect of tariffs like isn't priced in, and we've started correlating with the S&P, and that's going to go to hell and all this type of stuff. If you're like, you know, you have a turbo bear-tarded macro bias, I think on that type of reclaim, you're like, oh, okay, this thing's like got some juice and it's been grinding up. I will sell either the range high, the other boundary, or if the reclaim fails. But like selling the point of the reclaim is probably like one of the worst tactical places to be a bear, you know?
100%.
It's like, even if you have that view, you need to pick spots in which it makes sense to express it. Like I think sub 93K makes a lot of sense to express that view, for example. But like anywhere else is a bit wonky. I mean, the range high I get for profit taking, de-risking, etc. If you don't think the market's going to teleport to all-time high. But it's, you know, I have to come back with the classic. Don't diddle in the middle. Like a lot of those blow-ups were happening like around 100K, and by definition, that was diddling in the middle. So yeah, going forwards, I think thematically you've covered most of it. I mean, it was I've got Velo open up at the moment, and it's really funny to see, at least on like aggregated OI, that it was going down during the final push higher, and there was obviously a big spike in liquidations and premiums at the same time. But like that was the degree of carnage, essentially, you know? Like there's a big open interest ramp on the way up, and like premiums are mostly flat, and then around kind of, you know, the last leg 103-ish and those wicks you see, that's when really a lot of damage was done. Like the entire grind up, there were a couple of instances that were similar, some like weird moves around that, but it's really that final leg that just carried a lot of people out, at least on the BTC front. And generally when I get these, I mean, when these types of things happen, I always find it interesting to see what happens to the premiums if the market starts to consolidate. So a lot of the times, I think I've discussed this before, but it was like ages ago. It's quite fun to see if the market goes sideways and open interest like either stays the same or ideally starts to increase, and then the premium gets really squished. You know, like those kinds of continuation setups tend to be really good because it suggests that during the consolidation, you have a lot of aggressive, fresh sellers entering the market after a strong move, but the market isn't budging, you know, and those sellers tend to make for pretty good fuel for continuation. So usually on these types of moves, if I'm not punting at the sort of extremities themselves, it's sort of watching what the market does and who's participating post blow up consolidation that can give a lot of interesting information. That's really it on the BTC side. Do you want to jump to ETH USD?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, this is, I mean, one thing, I don't know if you find this jarring, but like, for example, from 1.8 to, you know, 2.4K or whatever, or even from 2 to 2.2K, dude, these are gargantuan moves in percentage terms.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like it's weird to have to sort of psychologically anchor in that type of way, because you're like, oh, 1.8, 2.2, like, you know, fucking ETH, same shit, etc. But percentage wise, these are actually massive moves. And I feel like that's one of the easiest ways to blow up. I know you and I have both eaten shit on this before, when there's like a massive repricing in the sort of underlying price of the instrument, but you're still sizing as if it were like at a higher price.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, oh, my position size is kind of, I mean, this used to apply way more for inverse futures or whatever, but basically not adjusting your position sizing for volatility. That's a great way to blow up and get carried out. You mentioned on the TA side that 2K plus ETH, it starts to look spicy, and you've
Yeah.
been holding for fucking ages anyway.
Yeah, I'm still underwater. Like this shit is up like 30-40%, and I'm still underwater.
ETH has its best 2 days since 1986, and you're like, please test my entry from the underside.
Yeah, straight up. It's up 60% from like it was up like 77-80% from the low. And I'm still a little bit underwater.
Still
Not
not
much though.
enough.
But yeah, I wanted to see, like, because to me at least the whole ETH move was a little bit overdone. Like people just kind of like went a little bit nuts about it. Everyone was kind of like super bearish ETH, hating on it, whatever. And I was like, the sentiment's there to get like a counter trend rally of sorts. But the TA is clearly still very fucking bearish, right? Like, I mean, it was basically a straight up move from 4K down all the way to 1.3. There was 2 or 3 consolidations along the way, not even a try at a reclaim or anything of the sort. So I was like, we need to have one reclaim at least, right? Obviously, preferably, I would like to see like 3K reclaimed. At that point, I think it's gonna make new all-time highs. But if you want to be like an early bull, basically, you want to see at least one of the resistances reclaimed, because then you can justifiably make the argument that the market has shifted, right? Because before you couldn't. Now we can. We have reclaimed the 17th of March weekly candle, the resistance that we've been kind of fighting against. Now, if you close above that, this just basically managed to break the first resistance it's been able, like, it's been the first resistance that it's been able to break since ages, basically. And then
is it into another level? Because I was gonna start off by asking, like, give us some levels on this damn thing, because like really the best one on ETH is ironically like 4K.
4K is excellent, but that's not gonna hold again. That's not gonna hold again. I call, like, we go to 4K, you don't fade that.
I don't know. 8th test, best test.
No, you long into the next 4K test.
Okay, perfect.
I'm like very
and
like that. That's refunds. a high confidence trade, longing into resistance at that point.
What about 2.3K? Are we at resistance now? Because there's like some weekly fuckery-ish in this area, and it's also on the monthly. You know, that lowest close from 1921.
I actually like the monthly a lot.
Yeah, that's
on
also
the monthly. We are at resistance. Yeah, we are coming from support. I did box out on the monthly, like 1.9 to 1.6K.
Oh yeah, okay.
And that held so far, but you're right. We're kind of rallying into resistance right now on the monthly time frame on ETH. So that'd be nice to flip. Generally, if you want to make a good argument, the monthly hasn't really looked that terrible on ETH when you kind of zoom out a little bit. Like, that's not a bad chart, right? It's just the fact that we compared to Bitcoin, which has an incredible chart. This made this especially bad. But yeah, I mean, I generally, I on my personal chart, I basically just have the consolidations that we had on the way down mapped out as resistance. So I ignore everything else. I think, like, we have 2K as support now, and we have the next resistance at 2.7, 2.8K. And if that breaks, like, I think the 2.7, 2.8K resistance is the important one.
So the point of this most recent leg down, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Like that, where it started from.
Yeah.
And you reclaim 2.8K. I think we're going to 4. And like I said, 4, I don't think holds. So, like, if you're a cautious bull and you don't mind missing out half of the rally, because at the end of the day, that's what it is, right?
Sure.
I think that's like where you have a lot of certainty that it's actually going to go well. The not so cautious bulls, the more aggressive ones. I mean, I had a few people tell me that they longed pretty much the bottom of it. I hope they're still holding. Then, I mean, you have a new invalidation now, right? Like, a close below 1.8K, I think, would invalidate the bull thesis entirely, and then this completely looks wrecked. But right now it looks quite good, and I like it as long as it's above 2K. I like any dip into 2K. I'm not entirely sure if it's gonna give one. Best case scenario would be just not giving one and just keep on pushing. But yeah, at least you can make a bullish argument. The chart's still hilarious in its own way. Like, it's not the best chart,
Sure.
especially if you go to ETHBTC. Like, go to ETHBTC weekly. Like, that's fucking sad.
Right.
Still,
It's just, yeah, the
like, that's
first green looking
awful.
candle.
Yeah, that's an awful chart. But the thing is, like, this is clear as day capitulation, right? Like, you can draw the parabola on the price action down, and it's quite beautiful, right? Like how it accelerated on the way down, and it's clearly in the process, or if not, it already did capitulate. And usually in crypto, whenever it does that, you get like quite nice rallies. So you can make an argument, but just generally from market structure point of view, from support resistance point of view, from any point of view other than the okay, everything is so much down that it's just dead. From every other standpoint, it's awful still. I'm still holding. I didn't, like a lot of people, like I said, I would want to leverage up the moment we break 2K. But I'm not at my computer most of the time right now, so I just didn't have the time to. I looked at it, it was like, oh, it looks quite nice. The next time I looked at it, it was like 20% higher. I was like, okay, well, whatever.
Dude, the amount of like napkin P&L I'm down from eyeballing the chart and being like, this looks like it might do this, doing nothing, and then it does exactly that thing. You know, and then God forbid I'm actually at my desk and execute. Obviously, like everything goes wrong that could conceivably go wrong.
That's exactly
those
how
mental
it goes.
trades, you know, where it's like you don't even like tweet it out to get clout, right? There are zero redeeming factors in those setups. So you eyeball the charts, like, oh, it looks like it's gonna do this. It does this, but you know, you didn't put on position. You don't even have the social media fucking clout to leverage. You just feel like a piece of shit. Been doing a lot of that recently. I had that feeling when BTC was just super fucking grindy at like 85K, you know? Like in that kind of consolidation, I was like, this thing just doesn't want to go down, you know? And then obviously went on with my jolly old life, and here we are at 102, obviously. What do you think of the argument on the ETH that like 2.2 is more important than 2.7? I mean, we're getting into the fucking weeds as far as TA stuff goes.
2.2 because it's the old consolidation.
Well, yeah, 2.2 because it's the previous range low on the weekly, and also the monthly previous range low, etc. Whereas 2.7 is more like kind of in the middle between the 3.7 range high and the 2.2.
I mean, this is why I hate ETH.
This is why I hate TA. It's like there is no answer to that question.
No, I mean, you look at Bitcoin, it's so clean, you know, like you look at the monthly and the weekly and the daily, it's all kind of lines up, and you can see the lines. You can like the Matrix, you know, like you see the bullets flying. You're like, yeah, I understand.
I mean, the first two Matrix movies, right? Or like three, whatever. Not the newest one.
Oh, there's a new one. I didn't even know.
Oh, it came out a couple of years ago. Shit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not surprising. It's what they do.
This
nowadays.
Is for our culture podcast later. Don't worry.
Yeah, when they relaunch everything because they cannot come up with new shit.
Yeah.
No, but like, and then I look at Bitcoin. It kind of makes sense. I look at ETH, and it's all just a piece of shit on every single time frame. You make different arguments, right? Like you look at the monthly. You're like, oh yeah, we just bounced from support, but we're kind of into the most important resistance. So I mean, I don't want to buy that. And then you look at the weekly, and you're like, holy shit, it's a 2K reclaim. Just fucking send it. And then you look on the daily time frame, and you're like, that just kind of looks odd. I don't know what to do with this. It's the problem with ETH. And then you look at ETHBTC, and you're like, the fuck do I do with this?
Yeah, why am I looking at the ETH USD chart if BTC looks like that type of thing? Yeah.
I think with ETH, you kind of have to, like, it's a little bit less TA and more kind of like having a feeling for it, and it's much harder to trade. Like, it's so much harder to trade, and people always pretend like it's so easy doing these kind of like altcoin trades, or just generally like trading ETH or like any of the bigger altcoins. But I think especially in the case of ETH, it's just very hard. Because Solana, for example, I look at Solana and that chart makes sense to me too. Like a lot of the altcoin charts make sense to me. I look at ETH and it's always been, and this is like, ETH is 90% of the time just really, really hard to read on the TA side.
Oh yeah, it's had notoriously bad levels for a while now. Apart from 4.1K or whatever, you know, you can eat your heart out with that one.
That one was quite good.
I mean, you can imagine a world where if the monthly closes like a piece of shit on ETH, it would be like, oh my fucking god, we fell for it type of vibe. You know, like it goes from we're so back to we fell for it. Because like ETH is still probably one of the most, I don't know, convex sentiment shifters in crypto, you know? Especially
100%
recently,
agree
it
with
like
that.
becomes mega hated and becomes like a running joke when ETH goes up. But then when ETH actually goes up, it'll flip your entire worldview. And the same people who are talking about the ports are empty in the US, etc. The the global order, Ray Dalio fudding the bottom type shit.
Yep.
When ETH goes up, like all of that goes in the window. That's where my shit post came from. Where I was like, everyone's a macro trader until they get punched in the face, type of thing.
Yeah.
It just feels like macro tourism gets completely displaced by like a sufficiently big ETH green candle.
Any green candle in crypto, to be fair.
No, that's true. It just
But
feels like
ETH
ETH is more
especially.
accessible because
Yes.
no one owns any BTC whatsoever, apart from
Yep.
Michael Saylor and Tether and Cantor Fitzgerald and fucking Strategy and Strike. Like that entire cabal.
Like the serious people own Bitcoin, but we're all unserious people.
We're not serious people. Yeah, as per Succession. But yeah, I think that's where that comes from. Like, I think the argument that ETH is a better proxy for sentiment is true, and I think it's true because, well, at least in like a CT sentiment type of way, right? And I think it's true because far more people own ETH than own BTC, like in their portfolio. So
It's a little bit like the silver to gold thing, no? Like,
yeah.
Like the serious people own gold, and then you have a bunch of people that are just like they feel like they don't make enough money with gold, so they're buying silver, and it's like the same thing. Like the gold people always look at them funny because they're like, "Oh, fucking kind of guys are you?" Like it's just weirdos, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing with us and Bitcoin, right? Where people are like, Bitcoin is at 100K. Even if it goes to 200K, I'm not gonna make much money, so I'm gonna buy the next best unserious thing just to make sure that I get doubly fucked.
No, exactly. It's like JP Morgan is suppressing my silver type of vibe. That argument is interesting. It's been in play for a while. It feels like the whole one BTC is too expensive, unit size bias argument put generally. When do you remember when that really started becoming a thing? I think it was like 10K. It sort of really entered the conversation, and then certainly when it was making its way through like median US annual salary type figures, it was like, oh well, now definitely, it's why would retail buy BTC type of thing. And then my question is, why would you want to buy what retail buys if you know how it usually ends for them?
I still remember in 2017 where people were making that argument when Bitcoin was trading below 5.
Yeah.
Like just basically like
you're right.
Always been the case.
It's always been the case.
It's just gotten much worse ever since.
And 10K. It's gotten very real,
Yeah, I mean, you cannot buy a whole Bitcoin anymore as a normal person.
You just can't. Yeah, and think about what that number is globally. Like how many people have 100K to yeet in a single investment, especially if you think that it's going to be like a balanced portfolio type of thing.
Yeah, you want other things too,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like silver.
Of course. No, but I agree with you. Like since 10K, it's gotten like this has been a price level where people are just like refusing to buy it.
Yeah, and we've added a zero since then. So go do the maths on that one. The ETH kind of flow side or future side is pretty interesting. There was a huge OI ramp on this entire push.
Yeah, people are trying to short it.
I think there was a decent amount of that for sure, and you can tell from the liquidations. But like the liquidations were much more kind of orderly, if that makes sense, and evenly distributed. And right now, it's the open interest is down a bit, and premiums are like still pretty much where they were around the highs. I think it's too early to start making all those arguments like, oh, it's pulling back and people are buying the dip with leverage and this type of stuff. Like realistically, when you get blowouts, you're gonna have to wait a little bit to see where premiums end up and what market participants are doing post liquidation, and that can give you a lot of insight. Again, the same argument applies. Like if you start seeing premiums really get compressed and open interest pick up, but the market just moves sideways or kind of coils higher and crawls up, that tends to be one of my favorite type of continuation setups. But if you're hoping for a pullback, then yeah, you obviously want it to flush deeper, just to give you an entry type of thing. Also, just as a general meta note, funding rates, like especially on ETH because of Athena and stuff, but just in general, looking at funding rates and open interest alone, open interest is still very useful, but like funding rates, you used to be able to trade the chart just by looking at funding, like you could get really fucking solid reads by just looking at perp funding. I don't think that's like the case any longer, or at least presently. It seems like a lot of high signal to noise is found in order book data, and like bid depth, ask depth, specific exchanges, that type of stuff. It's sort of the meta among sort of liquid perp traders has shifted quite a bit from open interest funding rates, like active order flow specifically, and like footprints as well, right? Delta, footprints, etc., like active order flow tools, to more passive stuff like order book stuff. So that's pretty interesting, and just a bit of a side note. But yeah, obviously liquidation's pretty big on the ETH side as well. So a bit of a ramp. It's coming down now, but I think at this point, now that we've reached those technical inflection points, you're going to get a lot of signal there, generally speaking. I don't know. I still think like 2.2K could potentially be more important than 2.7. Just from a biased, I like the extremities, don't diddle in the middle brand perspective. But you don't have to pick or choose, right? For example, say it does hit 2.7 and then fucking pukes through 2.2, you'd be like, this is the worst chart in existence, you know? So you can always look at the mid-range to contextualize what happens next. But TLDR, ETH went up. I think if you're aggressive, you're kind of hoping that it doesn't pull back further than what? I mean, here, honestly, right? Yeah. Like 2.2 round number-ish?
Yeah, I like 2.2, but anything lower, like maybe 2.1 at the lowest. But then like this move is good because it's so violent, and it gets so much worse the bigger the pullback is. And people are gonna say like, hey, but I want to buy like 2K, whatever. But if it goes to 2K, I think the trade becomes much worse, because that's inherent weakness, like crawling back in. Like you want to show people that this thing's back, right? Like if this is actually the trade that takes this towards like 4K and higher, like you need to show people that ETH is back, and you wouldn't necessarily do that by like retracing 90% of that moves again.
And I think it's worth, like, you can be rationally justified in being highly suspicious of ETH green candles.
Oh, you know? 100%.
So, like,
you probably should be.
You should be, right? So I think the technical bar for assuming it's not a piece of shit is deservedly quite high, which means you'd want violence, you'd want continuation. I think at most you'd want to see essentially where it's pulled back to now. Maybe a bit more aggression, like to 2.2, 2.1, as you mentioned, but ultimately for that pullback to get flattened and for it to have another leg. Anything else, or like any smell of weakness, I think is just amplified by the fact that ETH has been so weak and ETHBTC is still in a rough spot that I don't think it deserves the benefit of the doubt in one sentence when it comes to the ETH side. That's interesting. You know, do you want to buy ETH support, Don, while buying the BTC range high? That goes back to a point you were making earlier, where you've got to kind of pick your battles, essentially. Because if BTC, you're like, it's range high-ish, I could see it slow down, but then ETH kind of starts pushing into do or die territory. I mean, how the fuck do you square that circle?
Yeah,
not a rhetorical question. How do you square that circle? Tell us, DonAlt.
By just holding.
Okay, perfect. Yeah,
like I've always
comes back to.
No, I mean, at the end of the day, like just looking at this thing, like I look at Bitcoin, and I mean, I look at the daily chart on Bitcoin, and I'm just like, this is just bullish. As long as we don't retrace most of this recent leg, the one that we did yesterday, like as long as you hold basically 99, 98K, this is just incredibly bullish on the Bitcoin front. Even though we are at resistance on the weekly, we're kind of like piercing through resistance on the monthly. And then I look at ETH and I'm like, yeah, there is monthly resistance here. But like, honestly, it is kind of do or die on the ETH front. And if it pulls back towards 2K, I mean, that's worth a stab probably, because just the first time that we reclaimed the resistance, might as well buy the flip, even if that trade is then made worse for it, right? Just because it's a decent setup. Like you have okay, you get to buy 1.95, like 1.95 or like 2K. You have your invalidation set very easily somewhere at like 1.6-ish. And then you have your target set too, which is 2.6, 2.7, 2.8, right? That's just on its own like a really nice trade. I think it gets, like, you don't necessarily, at that point, like if it pulls back to 2K, I would want to only target 2.7, 2.8. I wouldn't want to target 4K or higher, just because it did something that it shouldn't have, which is shown a little bit of weakness. If it doesn't show weakness here, like if it just goes sideways the next week or two, or even starts like going higher, I'm not gonna sell 2.7, 2.8. I'm more than happy to hold through it. I mean, to be fair, I would still like the upper range of that, like 2.8k is roughly my average. So
Oh, nice. Your entry
I'm
is going to be a resistance.
exactly. So I mean, I'm not gonna at that point. I'm like, I
Dude,
held
you
this thing for
provided
so long.
some absolutely fantastic exit liquidity in that consolidation, huh?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
Did a lot of
I
people
I
a lot
was
of
I was in
favors.
profit. I was in profit for quite a while. I didn't sell resistance and then got like
Yeah.
smacked back down. Is what it is. But yeah, to me, like best case scenario for people that already have a position is obviously like not pulling back, going sideways here, going up, and that would kind of align with the Bitcoin daily chart. Worst case scenario, the weekly Bitcoin chart actually smacks us down a little, and I think ETH could retest 1.9.
Ugh.
But at that point, like I said, it's just a trade at that point. It's not a, okay, I think the ETH bottom is in and we can have a really good cycle higher and
Yeah.
make new highs. It's a, okay, we can buy 2K, sell 2.8K, have a really close invalidation. So like the risk to reward is there. The possibility of it playing out is quite high, but I'm not willing to go much further. That's kind of like how I look at this thing.
Yeah, it turns from swing for the fences into I'll take a punt at this,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. Basically, like one is I like if it doesn't pull back, I'd be super excited that maybe like finally we get the move that we've been waiting for like more than a year now. The other one is okay, I'll just get a trade in this old
Yeah.
range, and that's cool too. It's not the end of the world, right? Like making like what is that like? That's 30-40%.
Yeah.
I think that would still be a good trade. But it's not as exciting as the other
It's
one
like a
would be.
Moody's downgrade of, the credit rating of the trade went down.
Exactly. Yeah.
Obviously, you're looking a lot at ETH because you have a position, and also it's been super strong for the last couple of days.
Yeah.
If you didn't have an ETH position, would you still be interested in the trade? Because I mean, your argument on ETHBTC is like looks capitulated, but also high time frame. There's so much damage to be undone, right?
Yeah.
And like ETH USD is at least not as clear as BTC.
Yeah.
So like, if you didn't have what you have at the moment, would you see
It's
yourself looking at ETH, or would you have a similar argument to times past where it was like, well, BTC is clearer, it looks better, ETHBTC is still crap, so I'm gonna look at BTC.
yeah, it's tough. It's a good question because it's a tough answer. I think I would, if I didn't have ETH, I would have been glued to the screen and would have tried to buy the 2K breakout.
Okay, okay. So you're
And
not being
then
held hostage by your position entirely. Like
no,
it is
like I would have,
interesting in its own
like
right.
if I didn't have ETH from like 2.7, 2.8, I would have wanted it from 2K.
Or 1.3,
Yeah, obviously, like that's best case scenario. But no, I like this setup that I've talked about on stream for all of those weeks. I was like, the moment it reclaims 2K, it's gonna teleport up basically,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what happened. And that's exactly the setup that I would have wanted to take. Now, at the current state, it's quite hard because I think, like, if you actually want to have an ETH position, you just kind of have to market buy here, which is awful
I mean, it
because
can't fail this reclaim. It'd be far too jarring, I think.
yeah, I mean, but the problem is like if you buy market buy here, where's the invalidation? Like it has to be like at
1.7,
1.8,
bro.
1.7. And then like it's hard. Like right now it's a little bit harder. Like if you didn't get the breakout play, then maybe you actually want the retrace play. Because what you can do, what can happen, right, is like we retrace towards 2K, then we rally to 2.7 and actually just break out. And above 2.7, it starts looking really good as well, right? Like the moment we cross into the 3Ks again, that starts looking really good. And then maybe like you had a trade from 2 to 2.7 and you get a trade from 3 to 5K, like that's still fine. But right now, like because like you said, we are at monthly resistance. You could argue this is weekly resistance as well. It's a little bit of a tough one. But I honestly like if I liked ETH and I didn't have a position, and I like how this is set up, and I think the chances of it that has bottom are there. I would probably just market buy right now and hope for the best.
Thank you. We got our clip for this episode.
Yeah, but it's awful. It's fucking ETH. You're buying
I
into
know.
20%. 20% up candle on fucking ETH,
I
which has
know.
been the worst fucking performer
Like ever.
in
Yeah,
a while.
it's
Yeah.
tough. It's tough. But that's why it's do or die. It's like, bro, we you know, we have no bandwidth. There's no patience, you know.
Yeah.
There's no bandwidth for excuses. If you don't violently move up, you know, I think we will immediately revert to fuck this piece of shit. I can't believe we fell for it. Like
Yeah. I mean,
collectively,
we had
sentiment-wise.
Gainsy crash out completely.
Yes,
So
this is the Gainsy move, realistically speaking. Like
yeah.
this, yeah. I've got my TradingView watch list decided to Epstein itself, and so I got through like a tiny portion of rebuilding it, and I've got like 10 tickers, which must be music to your ears. I've got Pepe, Aave, ADA, BNB, Doge, Fartcoin, of course,
Of
Hype,
course.
MicroStrategy, Pengu, Sol, Sui, XRP, and the S&P 500.
Okay. I mean, sounds like a good list to me.
It's
Yeah.
pretty, you know what? It's better than most coins. I don't know how useful that is as a benchmark, but it's better than most coins. Have you spoken about alts much?
Not really, no. Like I've just been like running Bitcoin and been like altcoins kind of shit.
Fine, fair.
But I think, and it's something that I spoke about last Wednesday, actually, which was before this recent move. And altcoins actually got a little bit of a bid based on the ETH bid. And I generally think like altcoins are much more interesting when ETH is strong, because the risk appetite comes back. Because something that clearly has been missing, right? And for good reason too. People got so fucked on the altcoins that even like the kind of like, we got some pumps on some things where they went up like 100% or something, but it doesn't give enough confidence to people because they've seen that game often enough, right? They've seen these outliers run and then they pile into their dog shit coin and then they lose 90% of the money. And I think you kind of need like a signal fire of sorts, you know, that burns and that goes hard. And ETH can be that, and something I talked about on Wednesday.
And it's muscle memory too, right? Like for
Yeah,
the
yeah,
last
I mean,
8 years, or certainly
ETH goes up, you bid altcoins.
Yeah,
always
yeah.
been how people have traded. So like if this ETH move maintains, I think the altcoins get much more interesting. And I think this is also one of the reasons why altcoins have been doing so, like generally doing so poorly, because this is what like how everyone thinks, and then like ETH goes up and people shift from ETH, or just generally just don't bid into ETH on top of everyone else and just go down the risk curve and just buy dog shit. And then ETH doesn't have enough bid, and then ETH retraces and people are like, this move is done already. It's kind of, I think the entire crypto space has been shooting itself in the foot, so to speak, just by basically rotating way too early, so we don't have a proper runner, which would cement the whole like, okay, there's money to be made, and like a bunch of normies make money and they buy ETH. ETH's up now 200%, and then they're like getting their friends involved, instead of like, okay, ETH goes up 20%, everyone buys like dog shit tokens, they go up 50%, everything collapses because there's no bid anymore on anything. I think that's kind of been the problem. So we need a little bit of a maintained move for just people to come back trading altcoins, because I think they're very wisely suspicious of any of these moves. And I think ETH is the one of the few coins that can give confidence back, because if that moves, people have much more confidence in the other altcoins also moving. So the further ETH goes, the better for everyone. And it's a good first start. Like, this is an explosive move. It doesn't really look like it when you look at ETHBTC, but it's a really good start. And you get another like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days, as we've had in the last 2 or 3. And we're cooking. That'd be really nice.
Yeah, no, I think that's very sensible. I think it kind of needs to go from more or less here, 2.1, 2K, 2.3, whatever. Just like, I think it just needs to keep going for all of this to catalyze correctly and make sense. Because I think the market will be understandably jumpy when it comes to any type of ETH weakness. And I think the market would also, like, there's a setup there whereby, for example, if it pulls back in a very shallow way, 2.3, 2.2, whatever it is, and a bunch of fresh aggressive sellers come in because, hey, ETH went up, it's just a free money trade to short it, historically. And by historically, I mean the past year, which is history in crypto terms. I think you need another push to really set in like a disbelief type of move, and the ETH is more than back, and it's not just like a one-off exception type of thing. And then I think you can have a pretty good roadmap for upside. It's just, those factors that I mentioned are pretty, like the deck has been stacked against ETH for good reason. And so I think you need the violence to continue to really catalyze into some sort of bigger disbelief, poorly positioned rally. I think if it starts behaving like super technically, or even if it just like fails this breakout, I think that'd just be doubly bad, essentially, because then you had a ton of positioning increase in like historically at least in recent history, like one of the weakest performers, harbingers of doom, dog shit tokens. And if we're all getting dragged up by ETH, live by ETH, die by ETH, the die by ETH part of that is like super ugly. So I think like extended pullbacks or failing to hold above 2K, all of that type of stuff is just like a non-starter, realistically. I think the market would actually look quite ugly if this is it for ETH and it just starts to trickle from here. A lot of positioning was based on the back of this ETH rally. And so, as a corollary of that, if it doesn't deliver with more aggressive legs, I think that would really fucking suck,
Yep.
But like, I mean, that's all theorizing and sentences. I think TA wise, as mentioned, for me at least on the weekly, I think it has to hold 2.2. If I see like a bearish retest on BTC of the underside, I'm gonna be like, this is not gonna work because historically it hasn't. But if like one of the weaker tokens in recent history puts in like a bearish retest and acts like a bearish retest, and there's a lot of positioning on the back of it, I'd be like, oh god, like here we fucking go, like that I would take seriously. I even think if it makes its way back to your cluster at like 1.9 essentially, but having been rejected at 2.2, I think that might be a good short-term trade, but it would still look shit overall, because then you've taken the wind out of the sails, and the whole like face-ripping, momentum, aggressive, sideline, disbelief rally, those arguments all go out the window if this thing starts giving back anything, realistically speaking. So yeah, I think for me at least, 2.2, 2.1 or whatever, like super shallow pullbacks is like the only acceptable outcome for strength. Anything else is fucking dog shit. Well, I think what that means in practical terms is if we get this type of price action that I spoke about earlier, where essentially you have the market more or less consolidate, open interest stays elevated or even starts to increase as the market consolidates, and the premiums post liquidation start to get compressed closer towards baseline or even negative territory, I think that's a really good fucking squeeze setup and would be early evidence of this face ripping disbelief, whatever, yada yada trade. So that to me is interesting on the long side, either shallow pullbacks purely from a proximity and validation point of view, or this like perp short disbelief trade. Those make a lot of sense if you want this to continue. I think anything that isn't that and is kind of weakness below 2.2, or the monthly looks like it's resisting, or the weekly reclaim fails. I mean, on the daily time frame, it would look kind of similar, like sub 2K, I think, on the daily. All of that to me would just say, oh god, I think we got fucking trapped by ETH, and that's probably not good for anyone.
Well said. I agree.
Well, there we go. I mean, that's it. We're here. You need to market buy right now, Don, to keep this thing going.
Yeah, I'm already back holding, bro. You want to make me buy like
it's like with
70% from the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. On the altcoin side, do you think? I mean, are you thinking of Sol and Sol ETH and that pair trade, which you were very famous for?
I mean, I haven't even looked at that in
certain corners of the internet. I mean, Sol still looks decent,
Yeah. I mean, I actually will post the Sol at the bottom. I don't know if you saw.
Legend.
Or like not at the bottom, but basically, I have. If you go to Sol USD on the weekly time frame, I have a level at 126.
126. Okay.
And the moment we closed back above that, like the moment we traded into the 130s, I was like, this is actually just a range reclaim. Like the false breakdown.
Yeah.
And the range reclaim. And I've been having a resistance at 200. We're getting quite close. But generally, like, that's not a bad chart. And if you zoom out even further on the monthly, right? Like, just throw on the monthly, and that's so clean.
Like, yeah, I mean, that's just like a
clear,
range, like a bit of a swipey boy, but like it's a monthly range is holding.
Yeah, just look at March 2022. draw
Yeah.
a box, and that's so beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, this
Like,
is better than 99% of altcoin charts, you
yeah,
know?
I mean that's just a good chart.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily. I'm not a big fan of Solana, personally, and don't really care
Shocking.
for it too much. But I mean, it's just a good chart, and I mean, I never like put my own feelings above the chart on these kind of things. So I'm just like I bull posted it at 130 ish. It's 170 now. I generally just think that looks quite decent. The moment it starts looking worse is if it ever loses 126 again. I think if we lose 126 again, it's also like a cycle ending kind of chart. So like right now, it looks really good because we did not like we had this false breakdown. If we go back down there again, I would actually assume that that was just a precursor of like a bigger move to the downside.
Yeah.
And given we don't have anything between basically 128, 27,
Jesus.
I would expect like carnage, right? So I think, and this is why the reason why I bull posted it is basically because it was the last time you can
Do or die. Yeah.
do or die.
Classic.
Might as well, right? Like at 130, might as well bet on the bull market kind of continuing a little bit. And so far, that's been quite decent. It's up like 30% from
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
30%. And I think like I wouldn't want to hate on it. Sol BTC still looks shit, same as ETH, honestly. But it's also not the end of the world. Like at the end of the day, it's basically just filling in the gap that we have. Like there's a weird gap. If you go to to June 2022, like that where we had that big bounce before the FTX candle to the downside, like that whole area that we kind of just teleported through on the left side in 2023. That's kind of what we're filling in right now. It's not the end of the world. It's not pretty. Obviously, looks like distribution. The range that we had higher, but also just generally like that Bitcoin pair is not the worst. There's much worse charts, and the Sol USD pair is quite nice.
Yeah. Dude, there are definitely worse BTC charts.
Oh yeah, so many worse
i.e.
BTC
most of
charts.
them.
Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's just it's actually that same level, excuse me, that we've been speaking about for months. Like
Yeah, we've been
126
fudding
on
that
Sol.
level
We've
forever.
been fudding that level forever. No surprise there.
Finally, we get like our honor is reclaimed by we fudded it 5 times. It went up 5 times, and now it's all forgiven, forgotten.
Yeah, because it went down for like 2 weeks.
10 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, still went lower,
Still
and then
went
we
lower.
flipped.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. It also reminds me of that classic like trader joke, you know, like the 125 level. Your argument was that if this fails, then it's a precursor to a move lower. It reminds me of like the summer range in BTC, where it was like breakdowns are bearish, failed breakdowns are bullish, failed reclaims of breakdowns are bearish. You know, you just keep going like infinite regress. Essentially, it's the same thing. You know, like below 125, it's awful. Above 125, it's amazing. But if it goes below 125, having gone above 125, oh boy, are we in for a world of trouble? But you know, and you just keep going.
Yeah, but I think that level is actually like
Yeah, no, I
quite
mean
pivotal.
it's
like,
all there is realistically.
Yeah.
Everything else is on the noisier side. Are you still an XRP crime fanboy, even though like their lobbyists allegedly are getting, or XRP adjacent lobbyists maybe are getting kicked out of the White House?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Do you know
Still
how
like
dog shit your ethics have to be for Trump to be like, oh no, you know what, this has crossed a boundary?
Yeah, I don't know if it was Trump. I mean, he was the one that tweeted it after all, right?
Yeah.
Like people are like, oh, look at that, the crooks at XRP, and I'm like, dude, the president tweeted
He was
it.
tricked. Don, out of the deal, baby.
Yeah, but I mean, the president was tricked, right? Like we were talking about like the whole like the Biden thing being not entirely lucid anymore. Like, what's this then? You know. But anyway,
I think he just doesn't give a shit about crypto, and he's like, crypto, whatever. We've got a bunch of money, and they voted for us. Let me just fucking pawn it off to some guy. And obviously, the people surrounding the White House are going to be some of the worst people alive. You know.
I mean, it shouldn't be, but yeah.
No, I know. The reality of the situation, of the swamp, rather.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's very swampy.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty obvious.
But that's just Washington, it feels like. You know, you can be bright-eyed and get in there with a fresh administration. You'll quickly realize you don't control things.
sadly.
Release the Epstein files. I don't know
I mean,
what else
it's
is
actually
topical.
absurd, dude. Like,
Yeah, I know.
no one talks
Crazy.
about this anymore, but they said they would release it, and then they release a Rick Roll. Like,
Yeah,
how the fuck
with a
is this
bunch of like super
forgotten?
weird influencers, they gave them some folders, and then
Like,
that's it.
what?
The topic ended. It's like when you're playing video games and your much younger sibling comes along, you give them an unplugged controller, and they think they're playing. That's what it feels like with this
Yeah,
like.
but why? How are they not like the whole conspiracy theorists, right? Like, how are they not going wild over this? I don't
I
understand.
know. Well,
It is what
at
it
least we
is
got
at the
some
end
more
of the day.
JFK files from Tulsi. That was nice.
Yeah. Anyway, back to XRP. Yeah, I still
Yeah.
hold it. I like the chart. Like, I just straight up, like, you go on XRP BTC, right? You hit it on the monthly,
Yeah.
and you're like, what the fuck is this chart, right? Like, I have a range from like 500 sats
No doubt.
to like what, like 8K sats or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's the range, and it's been so clean,
It's
right?
taking
Like,
its sweet fucking time recently, though, eh?
yeah, but I mean, you would expect that, no? Like when you get these kind of big moves, because that was a huge move. Like we're talking
Yeah.
about Bitcoin being a huge, or like the ETH move being big, and it's like moved 20-30% relative to Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
And fucking XRP BTC is still from the low, still up like 200 something
No, it
percent
was a
against Bitcoin.
gargantuan move. Yeah.
And I would expect that to take a little bit, but I also like I can understand why people are hating on it, because one thing that XRP does really well is it pumps a shitload and then it just bleeds forever, right? And people look at this and they're like, hey, this has been 2 or 3 months of like small but still downside. I don't want to be caught in the bleed again, because this shit has bled multiple times towards zero. And I get that. And I mean, I don't think this is necessarily the trade for everyone. I just generally have a feeling, and I could be completely off base. I like the TA first of all, but I also have a feeling that there's bigger things in store for this, more crime to be committed. But I could be wrong on that. But I just like I zoom out, I look at the XRP BTC chart. I like that chart. I think it kind of looks like it wants to go to the range high, which is still like a 3x away. I look at XRP USD on the monthly chart, and that's even more hilarious. That just looks incredible. Like that was like insane candle to the upside, barely any retrace at all. And then I go on the lower time frames, and like on XRP USD on the weekly time frame, it's still kind of ranging a little bit choppy. It chopped the range to the upside, it chopped the range to the downside, but generally like it's sideways basically. And when I see a move that where you have like it goes from 0.5 to like $2.93, and then it just goes sideways, that to me just looks like strength. And I could be completely tripping and it keeps on bleeding out, whatever. At some point I'll sell if it does that, but right now I'm still convinced that this is a decent trade.
Okay. I mean, look, yeah, if you could hold ETH from 2.7, holding XRP must feel like a fucking godsend, considering
Yeah, I
it's
mean
just going sideways.
I mean, I'm holding E from 2.7. It's trading at 2.3, and I'm holding XRP basically from 0.5, and it's
Yeah.
trading at 2.3,
Yeah.
2.4. I mean, if there's one position that I'm gonna complain about, it's ETH.
Yeah, that certainly set the bar. No, I agree that that's essentially where that is. There are some others which have either been super strong recently or are close to their all-time highs. If I
Mm-hmm.
work my way down the watch list, I mean Pepe is interesting, but like TA wise, it's a bit of a pain in the ass.
Yep, I agree.
So like but it's very strong today, especially.
Very, very strong. Yeah.
So
It's basically Pepe, given it's one of the, or like the meme coin on ETH, right?
yeah,
Let's be like entirely honest. There's not really that much on the meme side of things on ETH. Pepe is one of them, and it's actually like I think it's one of the better memes generally. Obviously, like you compare that to like Whiff or whatever. Like, I mean, how are you even comparing the two, right? Like one
sure.
is an actual like culture phenomenon. I mean, it doesn't really matter that there's multiple Pepe. This is just the accepted Pepe one,
Yeah, I
right?
think
Like
that's
this
fair.
this is the accepted Pepe meme, and this is like a big thing. And then you have Whiff, like the thing that couldn't make it on the sphere, right? And people try to compare the two, And obviously, I think you cannot really. People try to compare the shitty memes to this all the time. And then you have on top of that it's decent meme. You have on top of that the fact that it's one of the only ones that is actually decent on ETH, right?
Yeah.
So when ETH goes up, Pepe goes up hard.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be Lido, Aave, Arbitrum, OP, you know,
Yeah.
and now it's Pepe. It's quite indicative of the
I mean,
times.
memes have done really well in the last couple of days. Like Popcat's up like a shitload. Popcat's up like 320, 330%. There was like a house coin or whatever that went up a lot. There's Fart coin that went up like
Fartcoin
basically
is
infinite.
super.
Yeah, it's actually one of I shilled that. I didn't buy it, but I shilled it on the show.
I mean, that's a real trend, eh?
Yeah,
this is like Baby Pip's textbook uptrend.
Yeah, open the daily chart. Like,
yeah, that's what I've
got.
Yeah,
I shielded at 0.35 because I was like, this is like basically like that resistance looked like it's gonna go, and if it goes, I mean, you can buy any retest, and I mean that's been really nice.
Hoderis continues to rise. You know.
Yeah, I mean it's one of the funnier memes. I mean, I generally dislike meme coins, and they're all going to zero. But like Fartcoin is like it's obviously funny in comparison to all the other shit, basically.
Yeah, I'll give it that.
And then Pepe is like just a culture thing, I would say.
Yeah.
And then you have like a handful of others, like not even a handful that are actually like decent. And then obviously those are the ones that people kind of rally around.
Bonk is up a fair bit as well, although that chart from a zoomed out perspective is a bit like,
yeah, I mean, Bonk has just like a couple famous people continuously, or like famous, like basically influential people on Twitter. I think it's the only reason why this is not died, because Bonk is really not funny. I don't like it, just straight up like it's not funny, it's not a good meme, it's not nothing. It's just like there's the right people chilling it continuously, and I think that's why it's doing well. But it's also like there's much worse meme coin charts out there than Bonk, right? Like when you zoom out, you go on the weekly time frame, it basically is all like it's back where it was in 2023, and that's a good thing for the meme coins, right?
Yes, for sure.
So yeah, that's
the bar is not very high.
I mean, Trump coin's also up a bunch.
Oh, Trump! I need to add that to my watch list as well.
Yeah, did you hear that he's gonna meet the top holders?
Yes.
Fucking absurd, man.
I saw. I mean, it's a way for Justin Sun to curry favors. So
yeah,
no surprise. Didn't he use like the HTX internal, like their hot wallet, basically, to get to the top of that leaderboard?
Yeah, did he?
I don't know. I might be making
I've not been really 100% following much.
I may have hallucinated that.
But that sounds like something that he may or may not do.
Believable. Yeah. Hype, I think, is super interesting.
Oh yeah, Hype's been really strong.
I mean, it is a good coin, certainly insofar as I mean the exchange itself is obviously the best of its class, but also like the token mechanics are refreshing, you know, at the very least.
Yeah.
And also, perhaps most pertinent for current price action, that washout all the way to like $9 is not trivial whatsoever, you know?
No, pretty hype.
Like you're always worried about, especially when the large amount of wealth is airdropped. I think people tend to slightly exaggerate this effect because most of the airdrop holders will like dump immediately. And even if it's not dumping immediately, I mean, what number of them held all the way to like $40? Probably vanishingly small, at least quantity-wise. But even with that in mind, that move to $9 is a real fucking washout, you know? And nothing changed fundamentally as far as hype goes. I mean, still doing still a ton of revenue, bunch of buybacks. I think they recently set a new open interest record as well, which then volumes keep going up. They're adding spot. I mean, the native listings aren't super hot, and that part, there's still some mechanisms to be ironed out. But in general, I think if you had to do token design, or at least look at the current token landscape and say, if we have anything resembling fundamentals, which tokens are broadly in that neighborhood, it's a vanishingly small list, but I think hype would definitely be on it, you know?
Yeah.
The other ones I had, I mean, in this current half-baked watch list, I've got Pengu as well.
I haven't looked at that in a long time, but I've seen that it's
strong off the bottom, you know?
Yeah. People were making fun of it a lot. I never claimed my airdrop.
You got a Pengu airdrop?
Yeah, I mean, almost everyone got something at least. Like if you have old... Yeah, if you had old wallets that did stuff,
Yeah.
you got an airdrop, but I just never claimed
No, I
it.
probably didn't either. No, I know I didn't. I just probably got one, and didn't claim it. But yeah, this got clowned on and dunked on for ages. And similarly, airdrop into massive recovery is pretty good. You know, like
Yeah.
we had a bunch of airdrops certainly last year, and they're down a shit ton, certainly more than this from their highs. And also, as a bit of FA alpha, Pengu keeps bombing my Instagram reel doom scrolls with their memes. So
Yeah, actually.
that's bullish. Something's going on.
Yeah, I mean they've been really good on that front.
Yeah. And Sui is the other one I have. That just came up because of strength at the bottom, proximity to all-time high, and also I think there's just a pretty decent update
Oh,
in
that's a good
validation.
chart, yeah.
Right? Like the cluster that it formed, the daily consolidation at like 320, 350. I think that's pretty clean.
Yeah, that's hilariously strong compared to like almost everything
Almost
else.
everything. I think filter wise and watchlist wise, the useful coins are going to be those which are really strong off the bottom, and also those which, even if they're not super strong from the bottom, are pretty close to their all-time highs.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds super obvious, but when you have 700 fucking perps listed, you kind of need a system for this, and a scanner or a filter or whatever else. I think both of those, or at least one of those two, is a pretty decent way to start. I don't think you can even look at 24-hour change anymore as a useful indicator. That used to be like a no-brainer, you know, when there were a fewer number of listings. You're like, oh, just look at like the strong stuff, and most of it wasn't completely illiquid, vapor manipulated dog shit, or at least not to the same extent, right? Dog shit is a continuum, as we've established, but now you just can't do that anymore. I feel like with the number of perp listings, kind of need to be a bit more proactive about it. The final meme coin I want to talk about, I'm conscious of time here, is the S&P, Don.
Oh, that's a hard one.
So what the fuck do you think of that one? I mean, the monthly cluster, the TA enjoyers won again, right? The bottom of the monthly cluster, as they all did. Or the weekly retest, essentially. That was like almost tick perfect from the high of 21 on the S&P. That was the bottom, essentially. So TA enjoyers are enjoying, but obviously there are a couple things going on here. Like, I think the first one is a sort of correlation identity crisis with BTC, where it was like, oh, we're the S&P, oh, just kidding, we went up, we're gold now, and we kind of flip-flop back and forth.
Yeah, I love that.
I know, it's my
Happens
favorite
all
as
the
well.
time.
I actually think it's a great thing.
Yeah, it's up, like it doesn't get better. Like if you can lob as like a risk on asset and a risk off asset, I mean, just fucking send it.
It's so good. You gotta love it. Narrative adaptability or whatever, right? So that's been cool. But then the other thing with the S&P is, you know, all these headlines that it's retail buying the dip and like hedge funds are short, art of the deal, 4D chess. This is a mega dead cat bounce. Ray Dalio fudding about the global order changing. The ports are empty. It's not priced in. Yada yada. There's a ton of fucking macro tourist headline noise around this thing. I think the risk case is essentially that we are still more correlated with tech stocks, Qs, risk on, etc. And if the doomer argument for equities, earnings are coming up and all this kind of stuff, basically, and after a bounce of this size, you know, if all of those things put together, we end up getting some downward pressure on the S&P. I mean, that could spill over into BTC if it's violent enough. Like, I'm not fully convinced that we're immune from that or that we're suddenly gold now. I think we're whatever Michael Saylor decides we are, in like super cynical terms. But I guess, you know, if you had to articulate the risk case, it would essentially be that we are not out of the woods TM on the S&P. It's already had a pretty big, meaty fucking bounce. You know, basically retraced most of the wipeout. It's right at the point of origin. And so if that sees some downward pressure for whatever tariff, technical flow, momentum, VIX, gamma hedging reasons, that might affect us a little bit, especially if we're at the range high. Do you think that's a plausible case? And even if it's plausible, do you think it's likely or not?
Yeah, I generally think it's probably, I mean, most likely to just go sideways to me, but I mean,
you used to say it would go sideways for 10 years or something. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
the Don lost, dude. Fuck you. the lost decade of, you know, 2022 to 2032.
Yeah, that didn't work out. It's good that I trade crypto. Huh?
I know.
No, I mean, I don't know. Like it's so hard to say
Yeah,
because I
fuck
genuinely
knows.
think it's kind of like it's a little bit fucked, but also like it's the S&P. Like, what else are you gonna buy? You know, like even if it's like even if America kind of made itself less interesting on like an investment basis, and even if like you're like, okay, like maybe there's going to be less profits to go around, like what else are you going to buy, right? And that's
I mean, I
why
don't know. You were telling me to buy the DAX the last time we spoke.
oh yeah, look at the DAX, dude. It's so much better, dude. Open up the DAX now that you said it. Look at that. Look
Okay,
at it.
fine.
Look at it and tell me that I'm wrong.
Listen, it's about to SFP. It's range high, and the range low is at 18.5k.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
level to level,
yeah.
mate. Nice and simple.
Dude, this is the biggest COVID reversal we've ever seen.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I generally like, what are you gonna buy if you're not buying the stock market, right? And it doesn't have to be the S&P, right? Like, I mean, you look at the German stock market; it's been better than the S&P during this crash. I think most of them have been. Like the European ones are all up in comparison to the S&P.
I mean, equities in general, especially, just like ripped off the bottom.
Yeah, like extremely.
I mean,
insane.
even the FTSE went up, and the UK is like a failing state, you know.
Yeah, so that's kind of like where I'm at, where it's like these things generally tend to go up and to the right.
Yes,
right?
it's how they're programmed.
So like it's really hard to be too bearish, but I mean I think it's quite reasonable to say that the macro situation is quite unclear at least.
Yeah.
And it's really, really hard to judge how that's gonna go. Like this is a new paradigm, unironically, that we are entering. Like I think generally how the world's been working is gonna change. I mean, it's clear goal from the US administration to change it. And I don't think that's something that they're necessarily gonna fail at. I think it's very likely that they're actually gonna succeed in changing this, at least somewhat, at least until the next election. So like I think there's a lot of uncertainty, and that's not really good for markets as a whole. But also these things go up and to the right, so it's really hard to say. I'm quite happy not having to trade this and just being able to trade basically the gold analog. It's much easier. I mean, if we're talking like if I made this show about the S&P, I would have said like when all the terror stuff came out, I would be like sell everything, right? Like this is just awful. But I'm trading crypto, and I was like, I'm just holding whatever. It's gonna be fine, and it's fine, right? Like crypto is back to the highs. The S&P is not quite, but crypto is, and yeah, I mean, I'm quite happy staying in my lane, flourishing, trading imaginary internet money.
As long as we don't get rugged, that part would suck. Because, you know, when the S&P...
Oh, I mean, if the S&P goes down substantially, we're probably going to get rugged. Yeah.
Right. I don't like non-consensual correlation, you know? And it just, it just feels like when we enter those regimes, a lot of the time it's, I mean, it's, as mentioned, completely non-consensual, but also it often isn't to our favor.
No.
Maybe that's not even empirically true, but it certainly feels that way. Like, this is the classic sort of crypto trader interpretation. When the correlation works in our favor, it's like, yeah, it's because fucking BTC is tiny compared to gold, and it's better than gold, and we're a risk asset, and fuck you, we don't need you, etc. And then when it goes down, or the price action is shit because the correlation is like, oh, I fucking hate macro forces, uncertainty, things out of my control, etc., etc. Quite funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's some spillover risk if it gets ugly in the S&P. I think. I just hope it doesn't. I don't have any fucking edge in the S&P 500 or crypto for that matter. Haha. But like less in the S&P than crypto, right? It's like a smaller negative number in crypto than the S&P. So I don't think they're going to win any prizes by trying to predict that. The only useful predictor is that when macro tourism hits like a local extreme on CT, it tends to be at a bottom, you know? Yeah. That's certainly, you know, it felt like we were back in the COVID era when the only thing we would fucking read and listen to were Powell presses and Trump naming companies during Operation Warp Speed.
It is so similar too, though. Like when you think about it, like the whole like, oh, the supply chains are crashing. Like you have the exact same situation now.
Yes. I mean, fewer people dying, but yes.
Yeah. I mean, depending on who you listen to.
Yes, true. I mean, it's just like a big fuck off exogenous shock type of thing.
Yeah.
But at least oil isn't negative. I've heard that
Yet.
helps. Like, yet, yeah, we're gonna start adding oil, gold, etc. Is gold holding up decently? I haven't looked in a while.
It's been retracing a little bit, but it's still
But
good.
it's still up there.
Like, I mean, this week was quite good.
Yeah. I mean, depending on which one goes up, we should adopt that persona. I think that's the most
Yeah, I
appropriate.
think we're pretty good with gold. Gold seems really fucking insane.
Yes.
And like that's the thing. Like, I mean, when gold does this, we have some problems, right? Like this is not how. I mean, gold's fucking useless.
It's awful.
Like, yeah, I mean, so we have the better gold. So hopefully we correlate to that.
Unless it goes down.
Unless it goes down,
in which
then
case
correlate
we're a tech stock.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
if both of those go down, we are the future. So
yeah. Uncorrelated, except when the correlation is helpful. TM.
Exactly.
And by helpful, I mean green.
Please. No, but I generally think like if you get too overly focused on something that's outside of the scope of your expertise, you usually get fucked, right? And it's something. I mean, something that I've been saying, like I like crypto in the spot, and I was like, the macro is kind of shit, but I'm not gonna bother, and that's done me quite well. And obviously, you can trade this short term, but just generally, like the bigger moves, like if you make an uninformed decision, usually not that good.
Yeah, I think that's completely sensible. And also it's a luxury that you've afforded yourself, and people can afford themselves by being on lower leverage, right? And you're not forced
or no
to
leverage
make a
at all.
Or no leverage at all. It's just very strange. Like, people love the big moves, but the stuff that usually happens before big moves is absolutely dreadful, either in terms of price, where those people who are on high leverage get washed out, or time, where it just fucking chops and goes sideways and eats your soul for ages before catching that big move. But like, realistically, most people are in crypto for those big moves, and those big moves make up like a disproportionate amount of their lifetime, I would say, P&L as a crypto speculator. I even wrote that article saying most people don't make money trading crypto in the conventional sense, and I still think that's true. So like, I think for a lot of people, the crypto archetype is like trading every single fucking day, 50 different rotations, looking for beta positions, etc. But like, realistically, I think a useful question to ask is, how well does my current trading style equip me to capture big moves and aggressive trends in crypto? And like, if the answer is not very, then I think that should probably be fixed. And leverage is by no means some sort of boogeyman and the cause of all perils in the world, but certainly it can reduce, if used incorrectly, it can reduce your ability to stomach chop and to stomach volatility, which are prerequisites for catching those big moves. So you end up kind of undercutting the very thing you should be going for, you know?
Yeah. Well said.
Cool, man. I think that's enough for this week.
Yeah.
What's the
quarter?
TLDR? Weekly range high on BTC. Don't go down too much. If at all, 99k is maximally acceptable. Everything past that is a bit shitty.
Yep.
ETH side, well done, but we don't trust you, so you better stay up and go aggressively. Anything's up 2k and the entire industry gets scammed. And altcoins, look for stuff near all-time highs / strong off the bottom, but if you're lazy, you can just use ETH as a proxy. S&P 500, don't know, don't care. 4D chess, make America great again. And hire a better Surgeon General, because that woman sucks. That's all I've got, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can end on that.
Let's do it. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Leave a like, subscribe, all the normal YouTube stuff. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Thank you to Woo for supporting the show, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Maybe. Bye-bye.